We've spent a lot of time looking at inference for quantitative data, so numerical data, proportions of a value, means of a value. Chapter 11 is going to go over categorical inference. So looking at those different proportions within categories and deciding whether there are those categories hold true in their proportions. So here's a little example just to kind of get you in the right mind frame. We spent a lot of time at the beginning of the year looking at M&Ms. So the different amount of, specifically, we picked orange M&Ms a lot. We kept saying that 20% was how many orange M&Ms we expected to get when we took any sample of M&Ms. But what if we wanted to look at the proportion of all of the M&Ms, so the different categories? And sorry, purple, you are not included in this data. But I just looked up the most recent data I could find on the proportion of M&Ms was 10% orange, let's see, 10% green and blue, red and yellow both came in 20%, and brown is coming in 30%. Actually, M&Mrs is pretty tight-lipped about their actual proportion of M&Ms. So I think it actually was because so many stats students started asking, and they, I think lawyers got involved. But we are next going to we can do tests to see if all of these are true. So to see if these are close enough to pass a test. And that is where chi-squared is going to come in. So chi, this is a new symbol that you'll need to become familiar with. It's actually capitalized and we square it. This is called chi. It's spelled like chi, but it's actually chi-squared. We call this kind of test a goodness of fit test, where we're going to take 5 or 6 or however many different categories, and we are going to test whether that's a good fit, whether our sample that we take actually matches whatever they say it's supposed to be. So is it a good fit? I pretty much covered everything that's right here on that last vignette, but we do have a formula for it. So this should look kind of familiar. It reminds me a little bit of standard deviation, but it is the sum of all your cells observed minus expected. So we're going to take a sample, whatever I observed the proportion is minus the expected, square it and divide it by what we expected to happen. And then we would add all of those together. So for example, I take a sample of M&Ms, calculate the proportion of M&M orange that I have. Then I take orange, proportion of orange minus that 10%, 0.1, divided by 0.1. Then I do that with green, I do it with yellow, and I would add all of those together, and that gives me chi-squared. It's not actually a tough one. And but then also we're going to see on our table what percent that of the time that value should occur. So so we're going to have degrees of freedom. So on our previous example, I had 6 colors of M&Ms. My degrees of freedom will actually be the same thing. So n minus 1. So I'd have a degree of freedom of 5. For chi-squared, we are not going to be doing for categorical data in general, we're not going to be doing any confidence intervals. We will only be doing tests. So we're only going to be doing goodness of fit tests. So these are all the rules of how things are going to change a little bit. So we're just going to say either the model fits or it doesn't. We're not going to say that there's any proportion, but we'll take a look here. We will get a p-value. The distribution, so here's our null hypothesis. Distribution of the sample represents the distribution of the population. So, for example, we would say the distribution of M&Ms in our sample does represent the distribution as given by M&M Mars or whatever, or the assumed proportion. The distribution of the sample grouping concept does not represent the distribution of the population. So that's all your null and your alternative. Randomization, still saying that samples are independent. For example, I'm not going to get a M&M that's both green and yellow. 10%, both samples must be no more than 10% of the representative populations. Okay, same thing, normal. Okay, now here's a new one. This one's my favorite because it's so friggin' easy. All expected values are greater than 5. Okay, so as long as I make sure that my sample is large enough, that none of my categories are less than 5, or 5 or smaller, I'm good. Conditions are then met for a high degree model. And we just looked at our formula, and we can look up the p-value on table C or use a calculator. If everything is good, I am going to just conclude with either the p-value is small, we reject, or since the p-value is large, we fail to reject, and then we make sure we conclude that context. Have an example here for you to look through. We've got census data for New York City, indicates that 29.2% of the under 18 population. Okay, so this is people who live in New York City under 18, and here's the race breakdown. So 29.2 are white, 28.2 are black, 31.5 are Latino, 9.1 Asian, and 2% are just other ethnicities. But then Civil Liberties Union has pointing out, let's see, we're getting into those police officers. 26,181 police officers were surveyed, and we looked at the proportion of their ethnicity. So we want to see, do the police officers reflect the ethnic population of the city's youth? Interesting question. So that's what we're doing. So just this breakdown, is this consistent with the breakdown of the youth in New York City? Okay, so let's look at the null. The distribution of ethnicities in the department represents the ethnicities of youth. The distribution does not. So it's just the same statement, add does not. Random, we can assume New York. Okay, we're just going to have to assume because it doesn't say randomization. Okay, is representative with respect to ethnicity, but this, I guess, it's the entire NYPD, so we're okay. We need for there to be more than, okay, yeah, that's right. Actually, why didn't they add? This is interesting. I think this is a typo. I apologize. I think this should have been 261,810 police officers. There we go. That makes more sense. And for the sample to be less than 10% of the population. So this condition might be broken. Proceed with caution. So you can see, even in this example, we have some, yeah. Okay, so we have some, yeah, just a little note there. So this is a good example of when you would kind of put a little note, but you go ahead and proceed. All right, large counts. So you can see the table, the expected counts are all greater than 5. So these are all of my expected counts. They're all greater than 5. So you actually have to do the calculations and make sure that they are there. All right, so here's the thing. In our observed, if we were to let's see, take a look. So we went ahead and calculated all of the proportions. So we used the percents here, multiplied them by the sample size. Here, take the sample size, multiply it by the expected, so the New York City youth percents. And okay, just some little notes. There's a lot going on here. Next, in the do, this is the only time you're not going to draw a curve. Yay! So no curve necessary on this one. All right, so taking your expected values. So we went up here, this minus this divided by this. Okay, oh, and I forgot the squared. So minus observed minus expected squared divided by the expected. And then you find the sum for all of those. Okay, we take a look at our table, and we will do that together in class. We'll actually look at that value. It's a very, very small number. It's 0. It's not going to happen. So we're going to reject this null hypothesis. Strong evidence, very strong, because our probability is 0, to suggest that the distribution of ethnicities of New York police officers does not represent the distribution of the youth in New York City. All right, that's what we're heading into, basically inference with categorical data. And I will see you in class, and we'll do some more examples.